Hello, I'm Christopher Thompson, and welcome to another edition of Chris Speaks. I'm sick of all these Trump supporters talking about how we should all unite behind Trump. Well, where were you when Obama was president? Where were you asking us to unite behind Obama? That's right, you didn't like the black guy who y'all called names like... all you conservatives called him stuff like gorilla and monkey and all kinds of racist things, and all these people who had these effigies of Obama with a noose around his neck. Really? You're hanging a black effigy of a black guy? Nobody united behind him. They called him a Muslim who was born in Kenya, which neither one was true. And even if he was a Muslim, we have freedom of religion in this country, and what's wrong? I'd rather actually have a president that's no religion. But really, you want me to... we should unite behind an admitted sex offender? A guy who says, oh, when you're rich and famous, you can do what you want. You can just grab them by the pussy and nothing will happen to you. That's being a sex offender. That's borderline. No, it is a form of rape. So we got a rapist for a president, and you want me to unite behind him. You want us to unite behind a guy that bans Muslims. You got a guy that fans the flames of hate against Muslims, who assumes all Muslims are bad. You have a guy who's saying all Mexicans are frickin' drug dealers and killers. You have him uniting against people who are... you have him against... he's against, like all conservatives, against people of transgender, LGBT... you know what I mean. You're against the gay community. You're against several big groups of Americans. I will not unite behind hate. I will not unite behind a guy that divides this country. I will not support this guy. I will not unite behind someone who incited violence through their whole campaign. I won't do it. I won't unite behind a guy that's such an idiot that he makes Bush look like a genius. The guy who made a speech about space saying, well, security is important, especially in space, so we're going to keep space secure, and one of these days we're gonna wonder how we could have done it without space. How does that even make sense? And then he goes to say that everything in space should belong to America. No, you're an idiot. There's a treaty signed by all the major countries that space is neutral. Trump's an idiot. I'm sorry, he's a moron. He's an asshole. He's a hater. He divides this country like you claim Obama divided. I just don't understand it. I just don't understand why we should unite behind someone who's dividing the country, who marginalizes many Americans, who tries to block people, refugees coming in from war-torn countries to escape death and violence. You got a guy who wrote a executive order that kept people who had green cards from coming into this country when they're legal residents. We have this guy who is pissing off all of our allies, a guy who's now under investigation for laundering money from Russian money. You got a guy who is being investigated for obstruction of justice because he fired the guy that was investigating members of his cabinet for colluding with the Russians. You got a president who for the first time in 20 years, decides not to have the dinner at the day that, that's the end of Ramadan. That's what we've always been doing. So he's basically doing this to the Muslim community. He's doing that. He's saying, fuck you. You're not real Americans. You don't count. What is a real American? What? White nationalist? Excuse me. Well, that's the correct term now, but it's sort of a white supremacist. White supremacists who think they're real Americans even though they stole the land from the Indians who are the real Americans. People who are descended from immigrants that don't think other immigrants should be allowed to come into the country. People who claim freedom of religion but deny people their freedom of religion when it's not their religion, when it's religion they don't like. Where you're going to deny people to be able to build a house of worship. It's just beyond me that these idiots who were so against Obama for not... Hey, Obama had faults. There's a lot of things about him I didn't like, but the things I didn't like about him is what the Republicans loved about him. They loved that he was a warmonger. They didn't like that he was black. They didn't like that he would actually bring up race relations when it's necessary to bring up race relations. And I see it's been bad for a few years, but the Islamophobia and the xenophobia is getting way worse under Trump. Because these people now think that they have a platform to air their hate. Because Trump's president, they can do or say anything they want. And this is ridiculous, man. You really think all Muslims are terrorists? It's BS. Where I live, there's a lot of Muslims. I see a lot of Muslim women. There's 3 million, at least 3 million Muslims in America. If they were trying to kill us all, we'd all be dead. 3 million people, if they were all terrorists, why are we still standing? Why are we still here? You treat them like they're others? Muslims have been in this country for centuries, since the dawn of the country. And you guys say you love the Founding Fathers, but Thomas Jefferson talked about how Muslims were really good people and how he knew some and they were some of the best people he knew. So you're calling Thomas Jefferson a liar? It's ridiculous. I'm supposed to unite against a guy who's dividing us. He's dividing us, but we should unite for division. Makes a lot of sense. Well, that's all for this edition of Chris Speaks. I'll see you guys later.